Next is now part 2. Our conference on tourism goes on, and we will proceed to a very crucial phase of tourism, because we're going to talk about tourism that will have a lot of Greece, but not just sun, sea. We will talk about sustainable tourism, thematic tourism, and of course we have invited the right people for that. And I would like to ask the Deputy Minister for Tourism, Ms. Sofia Zacharaki, to take the floor. Welcome, Minister. Fully digital Minister. Good afternoon. Apologies for doing this, but I would first like to welcome the students from the private college IEK Anavisu, and of course the schools who came here, the students from the schools who were here before. Why did I start from the students? Because next is applied to you. Whatever we discuss today and whatever we will discuss in the next panel, and whatever the Minister, the Secretary General, and the representatives who were here before, Mrs. Dreta, and all those who preceded and those who will follow, and our panel, will be applied in what you are doing. You are studying for 2 years, and then the market is impatient for this new blood and new ideas that you have to provide. And we are very anxious at the Ministry of Tourism to provide you with the best possible studies on things that the market wants, the market needs. I know that the moderator, Mr. Houdalakis, is very anxious on the issue of youth. We have discussed it several times in various panels. And I would like to thank also the organizers for the invitation to this conference. Before the beginning of the new tourist season, as the Minister said, we wanted to start earlier on. And a season that was completed, was ended just a few days ago, because there were charter flights to various islands. That was a very, very pleasant and hopeful message for some island destinations and some mountainous destinations. I am not biased because I come from Karpenisi. It might seem trivial when we talk about 12-month tourism, but it can become a reality with the issue of thematic tourism and sustainable tourism, which is the heart of the panel that we will have today. So we do a stock taking, but realistically, we do not want to beautify things. We are very happy, we are very grateful to the people of tourism who are here today for their resilience, the fact that they did not bend under difficult circumstances, and of course with the help of the government they managed to stand on their own 2 feet, and we are able to talk about a good result during 2021. We're still measuring, we're calculating, we're taking data. It is true that we managed through very difficult hardships in the history of our country, but globally we are able to say that tourism made us proud. The resilience I mentioned before is a point of reference for the international community. The zeal, the warmth of people who welcomed the visitors of the country. They are not just tourists, they are visitors, they are our guests. So these people gave the greatest award, apart from the one we received from the World Tourism Organization. They said, these people, that they felt safe here in Greece. And then they were able to spend their holidays with the safety provided by the updated protocols, together with the possibility to do the activities they wanted to do. The Minister and Mr. Fragakis and Mrs. Loizou mentioned the very positive data that we are receiving so far, the travel revenues, the average expenditure that also increased, and this is something that we must keep for the coming years, the fact that we managed to have 28% increased expenditure compared to 2019, 30% compared to 2020, and of course we will keep measuring, putting on this balance part of mountainous tourism. And as I said, we don't want to make things look nice, just that, but it is positive, the fact that the uncertainty created by COVID changes the game, but we will keep on doing our work. During the 3-day holidays of the 28th of October, we had very high bookings. There was a very good message for the pre-bookings for Christmas. But again, I repeat, we have the uncertainty as to what happens with the cases and what happens with the combating of the pandemic. This is for before. Now we will talk about the day after, tomorrow. I will talk about sustainability and thematic tourism, because through the special forms of tourism and the professional approach of hospitality, we ensure the sustainability issue, the dissemination of the tourist product all over Greece, and the fact that we are able to talk about destinations that are overloaded with arrivals. Santorini and Mykonos were mentioned very often. Through the upgrading of infrastructure, other areas, other destinations can host a different number, an increased number of travelers, of visitors. What do we do in the Ministry of Tourism and in my department? First of all, we utilize the RRF. More than 100 million euro will be channeled to special forms of tourism. Mountainous tourism, ski resorts, trails, spa tourism, the part that is related to refuges, and we know how important these refuges are that are close to ski resorts. And we also focus on the following. The heart of all this effort is the human resources. Those who work in tourism, you know that there was a great difficulty in finding the human resources for the hotels and for the other tourist services. And quite often in restaurants and coffee shops, etc., it was difficult. So 46 million out from the RRF, beyond the 100 million I mentioned, will be channeled to this. The minister said it this morning, focusing on reskilling and upskilling. That is upgrading the skills or acquiring new skills. And the geographical distance will not be an impediment. All this will be digital. It will pertain to the whole of the territory, and it will pertain to 20,000 unemployed and seasonal employees. And we are indeed expecting the proposals that will be indeed substantial as regards the curriculum, in order for us to provide something, to contribute something real in the development of human resources. So our tools will be the RRF, and next to it, we're talking about the new PA, the new NSRF, the partnership agreement, which includes the Observatory for Sustainable Growth. It is in the heart of what we're discussing. And also Regional Council for Sustainable Growth. So everything is turned towards tomorrow. Everything is turned towards what will do the natural environment and touristic development complementary, and not something that is contradictory to each other. Of course, the natural resources are very valuable, and we want to provide a quality added value to the tourist product. What else? We proceed to synergies. Together with Mr. Amiras, from the Ministry of Environment, we have drafted a strategy with the assistance of the ANEOSIS, the educational organization, on tourism, And we recently signed an MOU, not like the previous ones, an MOU with the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Rural Development so that the products produced in Natura areas, protected areas, to be utilized in the best possible way. So, sustainability and touristic development. And of course, we at the Ministry of Tourism, with the special forms of tourism, we have a beautiful road show that we tour around the country. And based on a strategy and target setting, always focused on sustainability. We know very well that in order to talk about a country that can be very competitive globally, but this part, the sustainability, is an integral part of it, an indispensable part of it. I will stop at this point. I'm sure that I have forgotten a lot of things, but I will mention them during the discussion. Just one thing, Mr. Houdalakis. Reskilling? No. I will talk about the habits of the traveler as they were recorded in the surveys carried out during the pandemic and the lockdowns. 60% of people who were asked as to what they would want just after the pandemic would be an excursion to the countryside. So we record the needs. Contact with nature, slow tourism, activities that do not increase anxiety and stress, that bring people in contact with the experiential part of contacting nature. And of course, they give the possibility to the regions, Mr. Houdalakis, to claim the fair part that they deserve. Next to it, conference tourism, sport tourism, cultural tourism, and other forms, religious tourism, etc., will be seen in the coming years. And this will be the key to match sustainability with the tourist sector. And the categories are the categories that we will discuss in a very short while. Be prepared to applaud her. She will stay with us. And I have a specialist for sport tourism. So do not move. We will be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
I want a break.
A historical escape.
All you want is Greece.
Με θαυμάζουν οι άνθρωποι. Λένε είμαι σοφή, τα ξέρω όλα. Λένε ότι η σοφία κρύβεται στα μάρμαρα, κρύβεται στο βλέμμα. Άνθρωποι, εγώ σας θαυμάζω για όλα όσα έχετε κάνει. Γιατί έπειτα από 2.500 χρόνια, στο πλάι μιας θεάς, κατάλαβα ότι όλα όσα μοιάζουν θεϊκά, άνθρωποι τα έχουν φτιάξει.
So, we're coming back. I hope you will find it very interesting. We want the minister to tell us more about Karpenisi. About the 8 minutes. 8 minutes for Yorgos Mavrotas. At that time, in the Olympiads, it was 7 minutes. But anyway, now it's 3 minutes. We are consistent with our commitments. As regards conference tourism, the history of the Hellenic conference tourism is with us. Mrs. Toli is here. If you want to ask anything about conference tourism, you will ask her. And those who love Greece and history would come up with asking dear Anastasia Nargou, who can tell us things that you would not have imagined that it is a way to develop tourism. So, Mrs. Zacharaki, allow me to ask the gentleman in this group, since he is a minority. Sport is one of the greatest brands, and it is directly related to Greece. What is the benefit of Greece from that? Yes, indeed. Greece has one of the greatest landmarks of sport, Olympia, the Olympic Games. Whenever you say marathon, they know what you're talking about, or Olympia, because people connect this to the corresponding sport activity. And we have other landmarks, the Panathenaian Stadium, the modern Olympic Games. We would not have had them otherwise. Apart from the historical brands, the ones that are global and can be a pole of attraction for sport tourism, because according to the Council of Europe definition, sport is something that is a bodily activity that is related to sport well-being and activity. Sport tourism is related to transport when you aim at sport activity. And we have 3 basic forms. Mega events that you can go as a spectator and follow, attend. In summer 2004, you remember it. The second is related to the participation in games and matches for entertainment, for people. We had the Marathon of Athens 2 weeks ago. People who come from all over the world to participate in these events without them being professional athletes. On Saturday, I will go to Nafplion. There is the Palamidion feat. I will have to climb 900 stairs. And this takes place for the developing sport tourism. And another part is training tourism. This is related to competition sport, and is related to the infrastructure that you have, that you can use to exploit the climatic conditions that we have as a country, to exploit the Aegean Sea with its islands and the winds, and the Ionian Sea, of course, which constitute a challenge for any sailing fan, to exploit Kalymnos and the climbing fields there. It has become the center. All these are points and areas, and in the secretariat responsible for that, we have a special department for sport tourism and entertainment tourism. We try to support it, we try to help it, and with the synergies mentioned by Sofia, to push more people towards these activities, not due to the social good, because sport is health. It's something that we need to carry on for life. On the other hand, it has also a development dimension that we have not used in our country. Well, we journalists are snitches sometimes. When I was looking for Mrs. Zacharaki during summertime, she was somewhere else. She was not here. Can I ask you something? What we will start to realize now, that is elsewhere, what Mr. Mavrotas said. Greece is a country where anyone who wants to do kite or do surfing can come to. Or if you want to go to a lake, for instance, let figures speak about it. There are people who can give you specific figures as to how popular the activities are, the activities carried out on a mountain, in a lake, matching the natural activity with environment, and the search for an alternative way of life. Figures. Last weekend I was in Thessaloniki in the international marathon Alexander the Great. 10,000 people participated, 55 countries. If it was not for COVID, because the prerequisite was not to be fully vaccinated. If we did not have COVID, we would have had 22,000 participants. What happened in the hotels? They received the guests smiling, people who would taste the cuisine of our country. 8,000 people in Prespes some time ago. They are looking for it, they are asking for it, but we need to learn how to offer it, how to provide it. They knew about our country, about the sea and the sun, but it is important for them to come and to get to know what a friend, journalist from Serbia, said in Amindo, where we had the second stop, and she said, this is a new Greece for me. This new Greece, this beautiful Greece, it is our obligation to make it known, to communicate it, and the EOT, the National Tourism Organization, is here. They will help us to convey this message. In this way, we can do the so-called extension. I was listening to it as a child, that the tourist season will increase, will be extended, etc., etc. I keep hearing it, but, well, what are the positive messages? I mentioned them before. We had people who visited until the 15th or the 20th of November. They visited the islands. Of course, they had charter flights. Okay, they could not go otherwise. Those who come by car could go to some places. So if you enhance the holidays of our foreign guests, because they have different holidays at schools, we can communicate and we can let them know that we can receive them. We have the mountainous wealth, we have the relief, and, well, question, and I will ask Mrs. Toli this question. For instance, I have traveled a lot covering the car sector, and I have met many foreign journalists and many executives, top executives of the car industry. Everyone is dreaming of a conference of their company in Greece. No one can organize it, with one exception. For instance, can you bring here the representatives of a major Korean company which has 10,000 executives and who need also 10,000 journalists to cover the event? No. Before answering that, I would like to answer the Deputy Minister two things. We need to establish national events by ourselves. We are a nautical country. Shouldn't we have an international sailing festival or old boats, fishing boats? We need to establish such events throughout the years, such as the Acropolis rally, right? Yes, until the country bankrupt, it was the annual meeting point, the annual rendezvous. And in the press centers, a city of journalists were gathering in order to cover. Or the bicycle tour, Formula One. Why couldn't we have such an event? Well, we don't have the roads. We don't have a conference, a congress center. I have been working on this for 37 years. Thank God we have the Athens Concert Hall. Okay. Thank God Mr. Labrakis built it. But the biggest hall is 2,550 people. Okay. How can we bring a conference where we need at least one hall for 6,000 people? All these conferences go elsewhere. Barcelona, Turkey, Madrid, France, Austria, etc. So we are, again, I don't want to say that we are the poor relative, but we try to bring people up to 2,000 conferences with 2,000 people, and we hope that they will not enter all the 2,000 in a hall. In our panel, we would have had Mrs. Tabourea from the Health Tourism Council. In conferences, they work with thousands of people who have a lot of influence on their society, scientists, doctors, etc., etc. I will tell you right away. First of all, I did not manage to introduce myself. I am the president of HAPCO DES. HAPCO is an association established in 1996. Last year, we enlarged and we took destination manager companies in our association. That is, the companies which are active for many years in tourism, companies that organize major events. So we became bigger, and we have these companies as well. This tourism, which is called conference or congress tourism, allow me to say just a few words on this. This tourism is dealing with scientific tourism, any type, medical tourism, under scientific tourism, professional tourism, and usually it is a type of tourism, a form of tourism which takes place throughout the year, except from August. It is throughout the year, and this is a type of tourism that goes anywhere, in the countryside, in the cities, and this is a type of tourism that we need to promote. Why? Because the participants spend 70 times more than a simple traveler, a simple tourist. They will stay in the best hotels, they will eat the best food, they will buy with their escorts, and it is a different type of tourism which is very important. We should retain this. When we talk about the revenues from tourism, we should have this into account. And at this point, I would like to ask Mrs. Anastasia Nargou to help us. She's a historian from the Greek Open University. The first from the Open University. I was the 16th that graduated. Well done, well done. My question is the following. We're talking about Greece and tourism. We are thinking about the usual symbols, the Parthenon, etc. We are having a discussion about the marbles of Parthenon and they're coming back, etc. But do people know what is Greek culture? Sofia Zacharaki said from Serbia that now I see a new Greece. Religious tourism, for instance, is it known?
Religious tourism, unfortunately, has been misunderstood. let's suppose you had religious tourism happen in another country. Then you probably think that we are talking about a clergyman and 10 from the congregation who will be pilgrims. Let's make sure that we disassociate between the two, pilgrimage and then religious tourism. There are many such historical monuments in Greece, and every church, every monastery, for instance, the Meteora monasteries have been built on ancient temples and churches, so there's energy there. And please also take into account the cultural element. Mrs. Toli said, this makes us rich, and I agree, it makes us rich. And this is a great connection to what we said so far. I mean, you start off from an ancient Greek temple, then you have the Christian tradition, and you come to today. And since I've worked greatly on the Balkans because I'm a Byzantinologist, and I have worked on many monasteries and churches from throughout the Balkan Peninsula, rest assured that we in Greece have exceptional monuments and remarkable monuments compared to everyone else. The others are creating these, they are makeshift, and we are more rich, but then again, we are ranking very low, Madam Minister. I personally, if you asked me what's my dream, for instance, I would tell you that I want to have Greece get where it deserves to be, and religious tourism deserves to be high on the list. A question, of course, please, go ahead. Is our country well known abroad? You are a Byzantinologist, you have knowledge of what's happening in the field. Is our country very well known abroad about its Christian monuments? To be honest with you, I don't think that there are many of us in Greece who know about this. Thank you for this. You're right. Maybe we are more famous abroad, more than we are here. So there seem to be more people coming from abroad wishing to see Meteora, since I mentioned that, or any other religious monument than us. Only 3% of Greek schools normally pays visits to monasteries, including Meteora or Katodapiliani in Paros, which is one of the most remarkable such monuments. The 4th century system there. I have drafted a PhD, so that's why I'm being a wisecrack right now. I know what I'm talking about. So on the basis of this, Mrs. Zacharaki, I guess someone could say that suppose we had a big conference center. Ms. Toli says we don't have one with sufficient capacity, but suppose we had the conference center, and suppose we knew how to. You are a teacher, you can tell us how we have to do. Just because I'm a teacher, I will tell you quite possibly why such a small percentage of schools are paying visits to such monuments. And then again, how can we bring everything together? Because there's a lots of sports there, 999 steps you're having to climb. Good luck, says Ms. Zacharaki to Mr. Mavrotas. But here's my question, really now, all of that, everything that we have come to realize, and we've seen it happen again and again for years and years and end, can all that be translated into policies in order for results to be there, in order for us to not have another meeting with Mrs. Toli, who would say yet again that we wish we had a big conference center? To begin with, let's all be blunt. Let's agree we'll be blunt and truthful. We have to be pragmatical. Anyone who came here and promised you that next year you're going to have a big conference center would be telling you a lie. To have such a big conference center, you have to have years. You have to first make a conscious decision about having some sort of sustainable tourist form materializes of next year. Maybe it would include something else. And then you have to take stock of developments in terms of conference and congress tourism. I believe that conference tourism is very promising, and its prospects are looking very good for Greece because there's a lot of revenue and that improves the quality of the product. I'm interfering, and I'm so sorry I'm being rude, but we've also built huge Olympic clusters and complexes, and I don't know, since we're having this discussion, maybe we could turn one of them into a big conference center, unlike Barcelona, which took advantage of its Olympic projects. And as Mrs. Toli said, you see that normally they go straight to Barcelona, all the conferences and congresses. Now, pilgrimage and religious tourism, it's important for us to know what's the difference between the two, and There's also the issue of managing cultural, historical, and eventually some religious monuments. That management in the past had certain gaps and voids when it came to synergies between and amongst local government, the first instance and second instance. But now, all of Greece, throughout Greece, there's the involvement of the Ministry of Culture. It's supporting existing monuments, improving infrastructure, it's creating new infrastructure, and therefore I expect we are going to have a unification of this cultural product, and it's Amphipolis and other such projects happening at the level of regions. When it comes to religious tourism, it's important to know that there is the NSRF for the itinerary of Apostle Paul. It's imperative for us to know and tell visitors from abroad that maybe some places of interest are here and there because they care about that. They're pilgrims, so they want to, and they are admiring what happened here in Greece, the fact that Apostle Paul started the Christianization of Europe here. I've also realized that Polish people who are going to Corfu and other destinations in Greece are doing so. It's part of the pilgrimage. So it's important for us to take stock of that as well and see what sort of prospects are there. Let's see what we can do, and maybe we should proceed with a different campaign. Downtown Kerkyra, Corfu, I guess you've seen pilgrims waiting to go into the church of Agios Spiridon. The new airports also helped to achieve so much because the regional airports and their network can help us improve. That's been proven in the case of Actium and also in the Peloponnese. I'm not just talking about the 14 which are ready, but it's all helpful. There's a typical example of the Peloponnese, and especially Kalamata. The airport there really helped the tourist industry there skyrocket. One last thing. It's a man's last word. Allow me to add something. Yes, I've been meaning to actually ask you a question. Apart from and far beyond what comes to mind whenever we talk about the fact that we gave birth to the sports ideal and stuff, are we non-fashionable, or is this too banal, or are we part of the trend? I think there's a chain that permeates history. We can't disassociate one thing from another. I am in favor of doing things step by step. I believe that each generation builds new steps, and so this is taking taking every generation higher up. This is also what happened with sports. And I still think that Greece has to highly emphasize on its history and sports, culture and history. So let's have values-focused sports. And so this brings me back to the values and principles after Olympia: integrity, values like that, fair play as well. Let's talk about these values and principles. There are millions of romantics out there who would love to come and be quote-unquote pilgrims, since we talked about pilgrimages as well. You see Marathon, the Panathinaikos Stadium, Mount Olympus, Delphi, Olympia. All of these offer great scope for growth and utilization. And as Sofia said, and she was to the point, this is not supposed to be just a firecracker. We have to work on it in a concerted manner. So we're going to have a real conference, please. And one last comment. Great. What I've been meaning to say is this, or rather maybe religious tourism might be understood as something that is just purely oriented to orthodoxy. That's why we are talking about pilgrimage tourism, and you have to be systematic in promoting it in order to sell it. So the steps of St. Paul, this is something that we used to sell to U.S. citizens, U.S. visitors 25 years ago. We had 4 such groups come every year. So pilgrimages, pilgrimage and tourism there, that is meaningful. Another thing that I'd like to ask, and it's not just interwoven with the tourist industry, but I think it's imperative for all Greeks, and we have to offer protection and a sense of security to the the professional tourist guides who are representing our country, please do something about that and show respect to this group of professionals, because as we speak, our country is being shown to visitors by non-professionals, and I don't trust people who are not professional, people who have not been trained. This is to the point, and you're right, Mrs. Toli. So if you go back in time and assess your own experience from abroad, because there's always propaganda carried out during meetings or other visits. I was there in Ephesus. Dear Mrs. Zacharaki, I was there for 3 hours. Nobody mentioned the word Greece. They said that this was a Roman city, and the tour guide there was Greek. When it comes to tour guides, an addition was made by Mr. Kossolas, the predecessor of mine, made sure that 3 new tour guide schools open outside of Athens and Thessaloniki, so we have another 3. This was the first academic year for them. So you see, the professional tour guides are increasing in numbers. Yes, but they are still not protected. There will be a new bill of law. I'm aware of the fact that whenever there are non-professionals, you realize, because the police can intervene, whenever the police shows up, they disappear, they're not even Greek. So this is a new bill of law I'm talking about. It's very interesting, and I'm sure that it's imperative to know that we are opening up this circle, and also we are broadening the capacity and capabilities to allow people to become professional tour guides here in Greece. I think it's important to add one thing that is associated with the expectations one has. Augmented reality can help. AR helped us a few days ago in Olympia. AR can show you what the location used to look like, the site, what it was like at the time of the ancient Olympian Games, just as long as there's digital tools and technology. So this augmented reality is helping us somehow, some way, because there are people watching us from abroad, and there's no distinction or discrimination between men and women. Let's start with Mr. Mavrotas, Secretary General of Sports, Mrs. Zacharaki, the Minister. This is a critical ministry. Mrs. Toli, thank you so much. And I think your title is the history of conference tourism. And then again, thank you, Mrs. Nargou, who opened our eyes up as concerns the difference between pilgrim tourism and religious tourism. Give us just a few minutes for a small commercial break, and we're going to have another panel.
σας απασχολεί το μέλλον σας? Οι σπουδές των παιδιών σας? Η δημιουργία σημαντικού κεφαλαίου? Στην Εθνική Ασφαλιστική σχεδιάζουμε μαζί και υλοποιούμε τις επενδυτικές σας ανάγκες με το Full Life Plan από μόλις 70 ευρώ το μήνα. Επενδύστε από σήμερα σε ένα άνετο μέλλον με το Full Life Plan από την Εθνική Ασφαλιστική.
Κάθε φορά που γεννιέται ένα παιδί, λέμε ότι μπορεί να αλλάξει τον κόσμο. Αλλά μια μέρα θα μας ρωτήσει αν αλλάξαμε εμείς πρώτοι. Γι' αυτό, στην Τράπεζα Πειραιώς, μαζί με 29 τράπεζες από όλο τον κόσμο, διαμορφώσαμε τις αρχές μιας νέας τραπεζικής. Τη βιώσιμη τραπεζική. Μια τραπεζική με καινούρια κριτήρια που σέβεται το περιβάλλον και δίνει περισσότερες δυνατότητες στην κοινωνία από σήμερα, ώστε όταν μια μέρα μας ρωτήσει τι κάναμε εμείς γι' αυτό, να έχουμε τις σωστές απαντήσεις. Τράπεζα Πειραιώς. Στηρίζει κάθε αύριο.
Hey you, what do you want?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Καλώς ήρθατε.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. To begin with, let's start with those who are outside this room. Enikos.gr, Real.gr. I've been keeping track on what's happening. It turns out that there are many who are watching from a distance. And of course, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's been a long day, and I know you've been lending an ear to what the experts and representatives of the tourist industry had to say. Here I am with people, with panelists who I'm sure will make this very interesting. And given what we had before, there's a tourist industry, there's a lot that was said by your colleagues, and now we are going to embark on a discussion on what's specific, i.e. we will be putting together the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that is, after all, the Greek tourism. And I think this is the quest. Yorgos earlier on in the previous panel was talking with his guests about the Greece of culture and civilization, the Greece of monuments, and what came to mind instantaneously was that maybe, just maybe, we have to look into attracting more visitors who will be interested in entrepreneurship, the future of Greece, culture and the economy. I'm talking about the culture and the civilization of yesterday, but also today and tomorrow. And these are just thoughts, scattered thoughts. And of course, you are people who represent the tourist industry. You are also representing the real economy. Let me rephrase that, the real economy. Mrs. Doundoulaki is next to me. She is representing the Secretariat General of Contemporary Modern Culture. I'm glad to know that the Ministry of Culture has such a secretariat. Next to Mrs. Doundoulaki, there's Mr. Lelekas, who's a wine communicator. This is a field which slowly is becoming more popular and known in Greece at long loss, says Mr. Lelekas. This is a thematic product that we need to take advantage of. Mr. Stefanos Sidiropoulos is next to you. He is the Sete Dantrekin last president. You are the link between man, woman and nature, and it's like that. We will be talking about it. We will talk about it as well. And last but not least, we are in the presence of Mr. Sotiris Marinis, who is a BOD member of Agroxenia, and he is the owner of Art Farm. And this brings us to what we were talking about, modern tourism, its connection to tourism and tomorrow. Let's start with the lady of our panel. Mrs. Doundoulaki, could you give us, in a nutshell, practical ideas and views and explain practically, not politically, how you represent the state, the administration, with everything else which is private sector oriented or related. It's about entrepreneurship, it's about new ideas, it's everything. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Mr. Niflis. Before I kick off, let me extend my thanks to the organizing committee of this very interesting congress, especially Mrs. Mariana Pirioti, for giving me this opportunity to be with you during this very interesting forum. And it's a pleasure to be able to share with you ideas about how culture and civilization can help upgrade and further promote the tourist product. At this point, let me say that culture and civilization is so much more than just cultural tourism, or what cultural tourism encompasses or stands for. Just think about this. Since the start of this day, how many times have we talked about creation, monuments, festivals, cultures, and throughout this day we've been watching these wonderful videos. Weren't there many cultural images after all? What I'm trying to say is that culture is an integral part of the image of Greece. It's a fundamental reason why a foreigner will come to visit Greece. And Maybe someone will visit Greece just to get to know the culture or the cultural heritage of a country, but there's always the gluing element there, because once you come here, you will do something culturally related. Maybe you are attending a conference. You would wish to go to a museum or see that monument. And then you have welfare tourism, well-being, a spa, natural springs. You would still wish to go to a museum or somewhere else. So this is ecumenical, this is global, this is universal. This is immediately recognizable, and it inspires people. And therefore, the coupling of culture, civilization, and tourism is important. It has qualitative and quantitative elements. The minister this morning, Mr. Kikilias, talked about prolonging and extending the season, further upgrading and promoting the country, and even deciding that this and that group would be the target. Indeed, the culture can do all that. A systematic effort is being extended, and Mrs. Mendoni, the Minister of Culture, has said time and again that over the past few years there's this conquest of coupling tourism and culture. And Mr. Houdalakis was there in the previous panel, and I'm glad that he was moderating a discussion which included Mrs. Zacharaki, who's working very hard throughout Greece. And this brings me to practical issues, because just like you said, we also have modern tourism, not just our cultural heritage. Having said that, let me mention the following. In the framework of the NSRF and the RRF, we've been having many eligible projects. So many cultural projects have been included and will be funded. So yeah, there you have it. There's the direct connection between tourism and history and culture. We have the cultural itineraries, 32 million euro, more or less. And these itineraries or paths or journeys are related to the cultural and historical heritage, and they're creating an ecosystem that also incorporates modern culture. There you have various startups and other small businesses, and that allows scope for local festivals as well, or special editions and special events, especially related to these itineraries. There is a silver tourism that's going to facilitate accessibility for senior citizens to areas and sites of cultural history, including ancient theaters, modern theaters, and so on. And that brings me to the fact that we will be putting together modern cultural events. This is going to give new impetus, and hopefully it will appeal to younger audiences and publics. So visual arts, descriptive arts, modern culture and civilization is our living image. So we have to integrate that in as well. I watched the Region Novatica video. There were many images coming from dance festivals, shows, and so on and so forth. And there was mention of city breaks earlier on. I'm talking about urban tourism. City breaks and modern culture and civilization has a catalyst role to play, because in the cities or towns you have human resources and infrastructure, especially human resources, i.e. artists working and acting within the confines of cities. And I believe that such people can undertake to use projects and programs and utilize available funds in order for them to communicate a vibrant image of the city. And all of that is a very lively expression of talent and contemporary culture. Let's put a semicolon here. I'm sure you have more to say, but here's my question. Can there be an umbrella to that? Is it fragmentary? Do we really have city breaks? Do we have an umbrella under which we can put city breaks and combine them with itineraries or whatever, in order to make sure that there will not be too many fragments? We will talk about it later. We were talking with Mr. Lelekas earlier on, and I was telling him before the panel discussion that I paid a visit to a winery for the very first time, a winery that had opened its doors to the public first time this year in Santorini, and I'm not going to advertise it, but Santorini, after all, is a place that is synonymous with wine, or one of the places that is characterized by wine, and I was astounded by the interest that the public showed. I was astounded by the numbers of people who flocked to that winery and wanted to taste it. This was a whole experience. It was not just about wine tasting. I went to an old winery where people explained me that this is the way, more or less, that wine is being made. This is the experience I'm talking about, and I'd like to talk with you about this type of tourism in this place that produces so much wine.
Thank you very much for passing me the floor. Let me tell you, since the Deputy Minister was here, I have to say that the interest shown by the state is quite moving. I have been working on wine and wine tourism, and this interest is indeed impressive. About Santorini, I told you before, we started from very high because Santorini is a unique case study, an absolute case study. Because in Santorini we have a happy coincidence of many factors. It is a global destination of outstanding beauty. The tourist product is of excellent quality. The wine history of Santorini is indeed unique. Therefore, the experience offered is of a very high level. Wine tourism, as Mrs. Doundoulaki said, is an ecosystem. It is a link in a chain where each link has, and this is what they do, they support each other. Each link supports each other. Because wine tasting is not just tasting a wine. It is an experience within the winery and on a landscape, on a site. The tourist or anyone whom we want to approach is a person who is of quite high quality, not just income-wise, although this plays a role. It is a person who has done everything else, who has lived experience, is full of experience, and wants something unique, something magical. He wants to contact nature, the land, the history, to be in touch with those. And our country has a wealth to offer. So he will not just visit a winery, he will go have lunch, he will visit a site, an archaeological site, he will go swimming, if we're talking about summertime. Especially in our country, wine tourism and culinary tourism indeed can extend the tourist period, the touristic period. And I think it would be a blessing if we could start talking about wine tourism in Greece beyond the model that we all know, because we have excellent destinations, winter destinations that can be promoted during tourism. Next week we will go to Drama in northern Greece to try food and wine. We're talking about Metsovo and Christmas now, so during the new year. Destinations that have nothing to do with summertime and sea and sun, etc. But wine is produced everywhere, especially, yes, in these areas, even more so. And local cuisine can be matched. Yes, this is what I wanted to ask you. How can we match the two? Well, they are already matched from day one. My answer to this is that wine and cuisine go together, wine and gastronomy. And quite often, the wine of an area is made to serve, to follow the local cuisine. Our work, the whole of us, is to train people, to inform people, and to attract them to enjoy both together. Comparatively to the other European countries, where do we stand? I mean, your part. Well, I will answer. There are countries that are far ahead, and this is how it should be, because they had many years, they started many years ahead of us. Tuscany in Italy, Bordeaux in France, Madrid, Barcelona, San Sebastian and Bilbao in Spain, in Galicia. Portugal also has a lot to give. It is not a matter of comparison, okay? No, it's not a matter of comparison, indeed. I just want to see to what extent the other countries that have had a head start, how much they have advanced, and what is our margin for taking a part of this tourism. Well, we have entered the game for many decades now, and I'm not going to talk about the New World, California, etc., where wine and cuisine tourism contributes indeed to the GDP of a country or a state in the case of the US. This does not mean that it is too late for us, because the happy coincidence is that the community of people who are interested in this type of tourism is growing all the time. Clearly, I believe that they will start with somewhere where things are well organized and the brand is very strong, but they will come to us if we attract them with a proper message and if we serve what we want to offer, what we want to provide with a high quality. Is there a possibility for a partnership? Because you said that they match each other, wine and cuisine. Is there a possibility to do away with the usual idea that we will go to Greece and eat souvlaki, etc.? Can we have the proper partnerships in order to reinforce this part? I go to Greece because I want to spend a weekend in this area, and I know that I will combine good food and good wine. I am asking you about food, but you understand that they are related, they're connected. Well, we need to imitate other countries abroad. Zones such as Tuscany and Napa Valley in California, there are Michelin restaurants in the wine zones because the people who will come have to be provided with very high quality cuisine. Here we have an issue. And I will give you the complaint that we have. Nemea is an area the closest to Athens where we have just one restaurant, a tavern. Excellent tavern, but just one, okay? And right now, I think, officially, there is no bed available to spend the night. So there is an effort needed. We need to embrace the whole ecosystem needs to embrace this effort. I know it is among the plans, and I think it is inevitable. It will be done. Well, all these discussions we are having are being based on infrastructure. My colleague was moderating this panel, and he was telling me yesterday that Rally Acropolis, which is famous among 180 countries, there was a problem of hospitality in continental Greece, in Sterea Elada, Lamia, which is the heart of Acropolis Rally. We need 4,000 rooms, and they are nowhere. So it is important to have the infrastructure to host all these people. So let me now turn myself to Mr. Stefanos Sidiropoulos from Trekking Hellas to hear from you about your part. How do you organize all this synthesis, this activity of activities in nature, etc.? and sport. Well, not sport. Mrs. Pirioti, Mr. Hadjinikolaou, first of all, allow me to thank you for this invitation. It is a great opportunity to represent the Association of Entertainment Companies. I will talk about the 6 pillars mentioned by the minister: extending the period, attracting visitors, attracting quality tourism, attracting cruises and investments, and sustainable tourism. With 4 out of 6, we are described, not just us, but we fit the description. The issue is not to have just you. And Mr. Patoulis talked about well-being, mental and physical health. Mr. Retsos said very clearly what we do as regards trekking and actions on the mountains. And Mr. Tsilis also went on with that. And Mrs. Zacharaki knows what we do. She represents us, and we thank her for what she does for us. And I will come back to the word sport, because there is a confusion between the activities that we do and sport. We do not bring athletes. We do outdoor activities for entertainment. And a 2-year-old up to a 90-year-old can participate. And when they are tired, we can tell them, let's go and have a glass of wine. What we represent is the companies that do trekking, rafting, climbing, bicycle, marine kayak, kite. We can have on the islands 2 or 3 companies representing these activities. I interrupt you because we need to distinguish, and in order for us to understand, since we're not dealing with sport and these activities, let's go to the part that we have today and the part that we can create. Do we have such an identity in Greece? Because in the previous panel, we heard Mrs. Zacharaki say that we have the area, not just in Karpenisi, but in all over Greece. We have the raw material. Do we have such an identity created? Well, listen, in 1986, we had the first activities of this type in Greece. Michalis Tsoukias, who founded Trekking Hellas, was trekking 40 years ago in Zoumerka. This has advanced, it has progressed. We see new companies coming and becoming members to the association, which means that the thing is growing. The last 4 or 5 years, what the Americans call adventure and the Europeans call outdoor activities has started to become a trend in our country, by Greeks as well. Is this sustainable? Is this viable? Yes, of course it is. It will grow even more in the coming years. Everyone wants to connect the experience. It is called active leisure. It is not just the activity, it is the linking of the activity with the promotion of the country as a historical place through active leisure. We are the people who will go out, who will walk, who will go for bike, softly, not extreme activities, and who will provide with quality and safety the services and the activities that people would like to do, but who are a bit afraid, they're scared, they think they cannot do it. But anyone can do it. I will tell you the following, as I asked about the rest of Europe. Are we, or are you, in a position to compete with the rest of European countries? That is, companies that carry out such activities, have such activities in Europe. I am vice president in the European Federation, and I have the full picture. And I could tell you that we must be proud. We have excellent service in this field, and we, as an association, we have organized the training and certification of escorts. And a future objective is to have a common European training and certification of these people and common scenario for crisis management per activity. We are at a very good level. Yes, we are at a very good level. Objectives? What type of objectives? Well, personally, I have two objectives, and I think that the association is moving along. First of all, to have an outdoor education in our country, and I would like very much, and I'm waiting impatiently to see a common ministerial decision from the Ministry of Tourism and Education to push the schools to have excursions in the mountains, in the sea, in the rivers. In 15 or 20 years, this will bring about the culture that the country needs, the mentality that the country needs. And the second objective is for Greece to become not the global, but at least the European outdoor destination for Europe. When one thinks about outdoor, to go to Greece. Much like the people now go to New Zealand. Well, New Zealand is very high. Yes, okay, it's very high, but dreams also are very, very high. Okay. Now let's move to Mr. Sotiris Marinis, Agroxenia. You have a part linking nature to culture, always focusing on tourism, but you, in your sector, you collect a lot of parameters about tourism. Yes, and all this in a word that we call agrotourism and ecotourism. So agrotourism is the possibility that the visitor must have to seek the products, the traditions, and the culture in nature. During the last years, Agroxenia was established due to the need to express this chapter of agrotourism. The visitor is not just a traveler who wanted to just have sea and sun. It has been certified, it has been, we know it from our experience that the visitors want to experience other situations, to see how the real life is for a rural family, for farmers, to walk along the old roads in the mainland, to enjoy this natural environment, to live simply, which is in the simplicity which is provided when it is offered in an environment that is in harmony with nature, and to communicate constantly with these people who serve this type of tourism, agrotourism. Agroxenia, as I said, was established a few years ago and expresses and promotes these ideas, this type of tourism. And the people who are in our sector are people who love very much what they do. Of course, it does not belong, I mean, one cannot become rich by having such a company, such as myself. He will not be rich in money, he will be rich in experience. And life is so wonderful when you think like that, that believe me, I would not change it for the world. The truth is that I created this art farm in the area of Kalamata. Kalamata was mentioned several times today, and I was very happy to hear it. The aim is to convey, to transfer to young people this beauty that the citizen, the visitor can feel, but not just the visitor. You, as the owner of an activity, you can feel it too. And through this activity, you can live agreeably and live agreeably the rest of your life. So the objective is, how can we move along this direction? I was very happy that the Mrs. Zacharaki mentioned today in detail issues that will promote alternative tourism, as we call it, agrotourism and the other forms of tourism that are related to nature. Because visitors want to stay as much as they can close to nature. We saw this last year under the most adverse circumstances, where we had an increase of the demand, and unfortunately we did not have the possibility to cover this demand, this need. So what is I believe that after this meeting today, we will see it in the coming times that this type of tourism will be upgraded, this form of tourism, agrotourism. The tourists come as visitors and they leave as friends. And this is a great development because they will come, they will taste our products, they will live emotionally charged moments. This has happened many times. And they will come back. Allow me to say, because what we call alternative tourism, I have started to believe, maybe Mrs. Zacharaki will agree to me, we should not call it alternative tourism, because this is what the tourists want. And we, when we visit a foreign country, we seek such experience. The contact with nature, the experience in a winery, the participation in a special performance, for instance, the activities in nature, outdoor activities, are not alternative activities. This is what we seek, this is what we search for. When we talked about alternative tourism, we had in mind some crazy people, hippies that were running to the mountains. But this is not like this. It's something different. We're not talking about alternative tourism. When we talk alternative tourism, we do not mean the same thing we meant some years ago. They are links of a chain. And this is the big picture of Greece. This is why my question to all of you, separately and to all of you, is whether in these parts, in this sector, we are powerful, or whether we can create the conditions that will make us strong in the European tourism market. I will close with you, Mrs. Doundoulaki. Can you tell us a few things about the things you started saying as to what has happened in this sector, linking tourism with culture? I will comment on a word mentioned by you, Mr. Niflis, and by the three gentlemen, the experience, the word experience. I think that this search for a deeper experience is what is at stake here. I think that culture, especially contemporary culture, has a lot to offer. And since you asked before whether there is an umbrella under which contemporary tourism can, contemporary culture can be included, I would say yes. And the answer is synergies and very close collaboration between the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Tourism, and regions and municipalities. This is very important in order to have activities within the cities or outside the cities that will be contemporary culture activities that will attract visitors, and even more so when this is linked to the cultural heritage. Something that, as I said, is in the being coordinated also in the RRF. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was very nice to have you all. Let's hope that we will see each other again, and I hope that you meet, all the links of the chain meet together again in order to have the final result. Thank you very much. We'll go to a short break. Take care. And we will be back with the conclusions.